All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 TV show in the United States of America. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Jackal of Nar by John Marco. This is book #1 in his Tyrants and Kings trilogy. Got the entire trilogy here. I've got each book in mass market paperback. And we've also got each book in trade paperback for some reason. I remember I bought them all in trade paperback when they were coming out. These came out in 1999, 2000, and 2001. And I bought them all in trade paperback as they came out because I really liked the first book. And then, when the mass market paperbacks came out, I bought those too. Anyway, just thought I'd show you the whole set here. And it's a really nice set too, if you want to get them. They all look super cool on the shelf together. The spines match. They've got great covers, and we'll talk about the covers here in a second. So they all just look really good on the shelf together. You can see even the mass market paperbacks are all designed to fit together. So that's a good positive. Let's talk about the cover to begin with. And we'll get the bigger version out because it's got easier to see. The cover is done by an artist named Doug Beekman. He did a lot of fantasy and science fiction covers in the late 80s, all the way through the 90s and early 2000s. I really like this. And he did all 3 books, so they all match in style. So, another thing about John Marco. I really like this writer. He's one of my favorites. In fact, I asked him, I've showed you how Tad Williams blurbed book 2. I've got a Tad Williams blurb here because Tad Williams was one of my favorite writers. He gave me a blurb for book 2, The Blackest Heart. Well, John Marco is the only other author that I've ever asked to give me a blurb. And he gave, I don't know if you can see it, but he gave a good blurb right here on the cover of my first novel, The Forgetting Moon. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it does say John Marco. Anyway, thought I would just share that with you. This dude can write a story. This is one of the best fantasy authors we've got out there. And he's not only does he have this trilogy, but he's got his other trilogy. And I've got it down here. I'll just show it to you real quick. I should have had this ready. But his other trilogy are these from Daw Books, which were great. This is a great trilogy here too. And it is called, and the name of it escapes me for a second, but it is called the, I don't know what it's called. It doesn't say what it's called. It's just the Eyes of God, the Lucian. The main character is Lucian, so we'll just call it the Lucian trilogy because it just doesn't say what it's called. Anyway, we'll put these over here. So far, this review is going smashingly. Let's carry on. Where were we? We're talking about the Jackal of Nar. So, it opens up with Prince Richius. Now he is known as the Jackal. He's invading another country. The people in that country think he's evil. Now he's invading, he thinks he's good. That's the thing, is there's a lot of gray characters in here. Because in war, everybody thinks they're the good guy, right? I mean, Richius, he thinks he's the good guy. The people that are fighting against him, they don't think he's the good. They call him the Jackal of Nar. And jackal ain't a good thing, right? But it opens up in the midst of a battle, right in the middle. You're thrust right into the middle of a battle, right from the opening scenes. And the battle is much like World War I trench warfare, just without guns and tanks. And, well, I don't know if they had tanks in World War I. They might have. Like I said, this review is going great. Holy shit. I gotta pull it together. Trench warfare, but with swords and magic and these cannons that are run through with kerosene. It's got, you open up, it's got a very sort of almost Victorian age steampunk sort of feel to it, with a lot of dirty, gritty magic also floating around. And it's brutal. The warfare is brutal. Like I say, this is trench warfare. We open up bloody, grim, gritty fire cannons. They're called, these kerosene cannons are called fire cannons. They are sort of a new technology that Prince Richius is using to fight the magic users of his enemy and the wolves. There's these wolves that are part of the war. I mean, it's just absolutely dynamite. And in the midst of this battle, we get to meet most of our main characters. There's Blackwood Gale. He's a soldier on Richius's side, but we get the feeling that this guy might not be the greatest guy in the world. In fact, he might have ulterior motives. We meet Lucille Lore, who is a Trin, and I guess the Trin would be sort of like elvish, I guess. They would kind of be like the elves of the universe, but they're a little bit, they're pale-faced. People call them demons and devils. A lot of people think that they're evil. They were vampire-like. They're a race. There's also this other group of things called the Droll, who are religious zealots. And then not only all of that, but we've got all these different things warring against. There's actually a map that I could probably show you here, because I always talk about maps. But there is this map here that gives you an idea of the two main things that are fighting each other, and then there's this little country in the middle of the fighting. So these guys fight against these guys, and then there's this little country stuck in the middle. So anyway, Richius has always been taught that these Droll are bad people, that their religion's not true. There's the elves, the Trin. There's some of the good characters that I like to follow are Dinadin and Luclear. Richius's fighting companions are pretty cool. Now there's also Tharn, who is kind of like this magic user. He's on the opposite sort of side of Richius, and he believes that the I mean, it's just like, well, you know how war is. People fight for whatever reasons. He believes Richius is the evil one. I mean, it's just, I like that about, it's kind of like Game of Thrones in that way, is where each house that's fight against other houses, they think they're the good guys, and the other guys are the bad guys. And so we just really don't know. And it's kind of one of those things where we got all of these other characters. There's a lot of great female characters in here too, don't get me wrong. But most of the story is told through the eyes of the male characters, like Cronin, Tharn, Count Biagio, who's one of my favorites. Count Biagio is one of those kind of Tony Soprano like figures where he's just not a really good guy, but you're sort of rooting for him all the way. There's the Diagog, the leader of the Trin. I won't give any plot spoilers with that. Not everybody survives. Let's just say not everybody survives. There are a lot of battles, a lot of death. There's a lot of political machinations. There's a lot of betrayal. This is actually a really well-written story with a lot of stuff going on in it that fantasy readers will just love. And I remember, I've only read these once, and I've read these once. I remember loving them so much, and just never getting a chance to reread them. So finally I'm rereading them, and I just was rereading it in wonderment and awe, just going, God, this is really fucking cool. Everything in this is just cool. It's just fun to read. It reminded me of the first time I read Game of Thrones. The characters are just a little more quirky than the Game of Thrones characters. They're a little bit more Joe Abercrombie-esque. In fact, this is a really good comparison. If you like Joe Abercrombie, there's no reason why you wouldn't like this trilogy. It actually reminds me a lot of that. So I give the Jackal of Nar this is high praise. This is a 10 out of 10 fantasy book and I remember when I read them when they came out, they only got better. And each cover is just exquisite. They're just great books to have in your collection. in my opinion. And now we've reached 10 minutes, so I can finally turn it off.